beyond the thunder and lightning, past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star.
Greetings and welcome back. Thank you all, as always, for joining. Reuters reports AI helps drive record $11.8 billion in Black Friday online spending. AI-powered shopping tools helped drive a surge in U.S. online spending on Black Friday as shoppers bypassed crowded stores, brick and mortar, and turned to chatbots to compare prices and secure discounts amid concerns about tariff-driven price hikes. What's the real story behind this data? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historical context in which most of these events take place. Let's quickly look at a couple of today's headlines. The Washington Post reports Hegseth, the White House helped, Hegseth, with White House help, tries to distance himself from boat strike fallout. As Congress vows accountability, the Trump administration emphasized it was a top military commander, not the defense secretary, who directed the engagement. Officials in Congress and the Pentagon said yesterday they're increasingly concerned that the Trump administration intends to scapegoat the military officer who directed U.S. forces to kill two survivors of a targeted strike on suspected drug smugglers in Latin America, as lawmakers made initial moves to investigate whether the attack constituted a war crime. Remember that the Washington Post reported last Friday that Hegseth gave a spoken order to kill the entire crew of a vessel thought to be ferrying narcotics in the Caribbean Sea. And I told you all, remember back in October when Admiral Alvin Halsey, the commander of U.S. Southcom, Southern Command, he resigned, and I said he's resigning because he realizes, he sees the writing on the wall. He did not want to get caught up in this illegal activity, these war crimes constituted by and engaged in by the White House. Wise man. U.S. delegation to meet Putin in latest bid to end Ukraine war. Ahead of the key meeting, Russia has claimed fresh military victories, hammering home its point that it can succeed in the war without negotiations if it chooses. For the first time, the U.S. delegation will include Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well as the U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, who's been criticized for being too close to Moscow. Some Ukrainians expressed positivity towards Kushner's involvement in the latest talks in Geneva and Miami. I guess they are expecting to have a similar outcome in Ukraine with Kushner involved as you wound up with in Israel. That's a bad move, but we know Russia's a little smarter than that. In fact, I can really only imagine Russia telling the United States, as your Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, This is a proxy war. The U.S. and its proxy, Ukraine, against Russia. You started this fight. Now Russia is saying you expect Russia to give the United States a face-saving way out of this mess? Not going to happen. Also, I don't think, I mean, they can call it what they want. It's going to be surrender. I can only imagine Putin saying, look, you went through this once in the Minsk process. Angela Merkel was very clear they were lying at that time. I don't think he's going to sit idly by and get lied to again. Why Republicans are sweating today's special election in Trump country. The surprisingly competitive race in Tennessee's Ruby Red 7th Congressional District is another high-profile test for voters and their attitudes about the president's agenda and the direction of the country. Republicans are hoping to hang on to this, what's called Ruby Red Congressional District, in a surprisingly competitive special election that's become a high-profile test for the voters' attitudes on Trump's agenda and the direction of the country. Trump won this 7th district in Tennessee by more than 20 points a year ago. And now, particularly looking at the result of the off-year elections a couple of weeks ago, the Republicans are on edge. And when you look at Trump's current numbers, 316 days into his term, 38% approve, 57% disapprove, 4% are not sure. Not boding well for Republicans in Tennessee at this time. On today's episode, the issue before us is Black Friday online sales hit $11.8 billion, up 9.1% from last year, according to Adobe Analytics. They're saying that AI tools helped consumers find deals, boosting online shopping. Physical store traffic subdued due to inflation and trade policy concerns. And Cyber Monday was projected to hit 14.2 billion online sales again, according to Adobe Analytics. What does all of this mean? Let's talk with my guest. He's an associate professor in economics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, former president of the National Economics Association. He is Dr. Linwood Tauheed. As always, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
So the narrative is that AI powered shopping tools helping to drive this surge in U.S. online spending on Black Friday. Shoppers bypassed brick and mortar crowded stores. They turned to chatbots to compare pricing. The numbers are 11.8 billion online, up 9.1% from last year. As an economist, what are these narratives and what is this data saying to you?
Well, I think the comment about the AI driving this process needs to be put in, maybe understood, at least the way I understand it, is that artificial intelligence AI systems have helped consumers to actually do comparative pricing. That is, you can get online and you can ask for what's the best price for this product, and give me a comparison of prices even locally. Although online shopping doesn't have to be local, but you can get a comparison of prices of different brands, of different configurations, if you will, and that the AI system will search and give you that data. Now, that's not something that you need necessarily AI for. You could have done that on Google, and so, but perhaps the AI makes it easier to do that. And so the AI comment there is basically saying that AI has made it easier for consumers to comparative shop, to compare prices and specifications, and that's probably true. So the idea that AI has helped consumers to shop is probably a good thing. There's also, I guess, the downside in terms of perhaps the question of whether or not AI has made it possible or easier for the prices to be manipulated, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, can we really hold on, I need to move my camera here.
There you go.
Can we really trust the prices that we're getting online as being prices that are actually the prices that would have been there if AI systems weren't involved, or is AI systems being used to in real time maximize the profit of the vendors? And what I mean by that is this: in a system in which the prices are set because competitors, human beings, are saying we need to price our product at a rate that customers will want to buy, and so we're going to give discounts, for example.
Wait a minute. And with that also setting a particular margin that they want to make, or a particular margin that they won't go below.
Right. Yeah. Setting all those things so that they can not, because they don't know what other customers are doing in real time, what other suppliers are doing in real time, and they don't know what the demand is in real time. So they're going to set their prices early to make sure that we are going to be competitive with other sellers. If that's done, then you can get on Google and you can search and you can find out what the prices are between different products, and those prices are set. When you get into AI systems, it's possible for the prices to be manipulated as consumers, let's say, they flock to this product and they want to buy that product, and so the demand for that product goes up, and the AI system, in fact, can now begin to raise the prices of those products to do what is called surge pricing. That is to increase the prices of a product that's in greater demand, and to perhaps even to lower the price of a product that's in less demand to drive customers to that product. But then when customers go to that product, because they've gone to that product, now the prices start to go up. And so AI systems make it possible to manipulate prices in real time, so that the sellers of those products can maximize their profits. And so you get a situation in which the low prices initially attract people into the market, and then the competition among the buyers causes the prices to go up. AI systems can do that. Prior to that, if you had online pricing, the prices were pretty much set for that day. And producers would have to look at their sales that day to decide what they're going to do about their prices tomorrow. So AI systems can help consumers find the best deal, but that best deal may only be a best deal for a limited amount of time. Then it becomes profit maximizing for the seller. And so, AI in that sense could have helped the sales, but also helped the profitability.
Two things. One, I just want to reiterate, when you're talking about price manipulation, you're talking about instantaneous.
Yes.
That you could be sitting at home with your coffee and your pajamas looking at the price of a television set. And you have 2 or 3 tabs across your screen, and you're going back and forth trying to figure out, am I going to go to Best Buy or am I going to go here? And by the time you get back to that first tab, that price has changed.
Yes.
And we're talking minutes. And the other thing, I'm going to make an assumption here because I haven't seen any data on this, but before AI, the seller would have a tendency to lower prices, but to motivate sales. But now with this instantaneous pricing data, understanding the demand in the market in the moment, prices may very well go up.
Yeah, right. I mean, that is the kind of the net result of having these low prices that attract consumers or buyers, and then the demand goes up, and so the price is going to go up. And this is not something that only has happened with AI. It's happened before AI was used, but it happened more slowly. There was a situation, I'll say about 15 years ago. I won't mention the company, but it was an online seller, and they were selling a product. It happened to be books, and customers were finding out that if you bought this book at a certain time, you paid a certain amount, but if you bought it later, you paid a different amount. And so a book that would sell for $20 at 10 a.m. Would sell at 11 a.m. would sell for $25, or at 12 noon, it might sell for $15. And customers who had bought these books found out that they were paying these different prices. And what that seller was doing was trying to figure out what the demand was for this book by varying the price at different times, and see what the sales were at that price, to get what economists call a demand curve, which is a relationship between the price and the quantity demanded for that product. And if you can figure out what the optimal price is, you can figure out what your optimal profit is. Now, when consumers found that out, that they were paying a different price for the same book, they were upset, and the bookseller had to make refunds to those who had paid more than the lower price. That was something that was done by the seller manually. It had to be done, let's say, every hour. With AI, that can be done every minute.
Looking at recent responses by the administration to pricing data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, for example, firing the director of the Bureau because the administration didn't like the data that the Bureau of the BLS was putting out. I'll also say didn't seem to understand the adjustment to data that, a lot of people would scratch their heads wondering, well, wait a minute, you told me in July that 1,000 jobs were created, and here we are in August, and you're telling me that the July data has been adjusted, not understanding how the data is collected, and that the more time you have to collect data, the better your data is going to be. So the Trump administration was complaining that the BLS and other entities were adjusting data. They were accusing them of fixing the numbers and so on and so forth. And primarily because the adjustments tended to be take the numbers down as opposed to rise. So anyway, the question with all of that preface being, can we trust the data? What kind of confidence do you have? $11.8 billion on Black Friday. What level of confidence do you have in the data that's being presented to us now?
Okay, we're talking, of course, about two different kinds of data. We're talking about the sales data
versus jobs data, right?
Versus jobs data. One data collected by private industry, private sellers and their retail associations, and another data collected by the government. And it was, of course, the director of the BLS, a government employee, who was fired because the jobs reports were not flattering. We're talking about two different kinds of data, but in the sales data, as we've been talking, is being manipulated, we believe, by AI systems, and so that data may be reliable, but it is not, to give a term, it's not truthful. It may be the actual data that's actually occurring, but it's data that's being manipulated, as opposed to the government data in the terms of the jobs report, which is after the fact reporting that the administration doesn't like and decides that they're going to fire the director. Now, I don't think you fire a BLS director because you don't like the jobs report and then bring in someone else to do that work. And I don't think there's anyone officially in place yet. But you bring in someone else who's responsible for that at work, and then you just let them report whatever the real data is. I think you put sanctions on them so that they're going to fall in line. And so the government data, I would say, is data that I would be very suspicious of in terms of being its reliability. The private sales data is probably reliable, but it's data that's been manipulated. And the question is not whether or not the data, for example, the $11.8 billion of online sales is good or better than, let's say, a year ago. The question is what was expected,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the growth in the population, the growth in the gross domestic product and so forth. Did these sales meet their expectations? And it doesn't appear that the sales have met their expectations, so they're not as good as the retailers thought they would be, but they were better than a year ago.
When you look at this $11.8 billion number,
Mm-hmm.
then we also, I think, have to factor inflation into the number.
Yes.
We have to factor in the impact of tariffs on the number. So, and the administration has been touting the $11.8 billion number and the fact that that number is higher than it was last year. But
Mm-hmm.
the number will be higher when the costs of goods is higher.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are a number of other factors that you have to put into the equation, a number of other variables
Mm-hmm.
that you have to put into the equation. So when you adjust for inflation, when you look at tariffs and so on and so forth, what's your sense of the real numbers?
Well, economists have had to come up with a new term to kind of explain this economy, and it's not just this economy in the Trump administration. It's from the Biden administration as well. They've coined the term K-shaped economy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the letter K has a place where one line goes up and one line goes down, and that's about the middle of the K. And so that's a description of the fact that for some people, the economy is doing well. And for other people, the economy is not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a divide in terms of income, what would be called the middle class, if you're in the lower middle class, middle to lower middle class, you find that your unemployment rate is going up, that the prices, that your income is going down, your real income, that is your income compared to the prices of goods, so you include inflation, that's going down. Your ability to buy things is going down. But if you're in an upper income, if you are among the percentage, the 10% who have seen their incomes go up because of various factors, then the economy is doing well for you. In fact, because the prices of goods are going up, if you are a seller of goods, you may be doing better because you're reaping greater profit. And we went through this process through the Biden administration of having inflation and not coining a new term, but letting a new term out to the public, which they called greedflation. The idea that the prices of goods were going up higher than the cost to the sellers, increasing their profitability.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a beneficiary of the profitability, that is, if you have stocks, if you have, if you're invested and you have a reasonable stock portfolio, your income has gone up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gone up more than the cost of goods because of this greedflation. Whereas if you're on the bottom side of that and you have to buy these increased inflated goods, you find out that you could buy six oranges last week, but your budget only allows you to buy 4 oranges this week, and so you're going to buy use all of your income.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're going to buy less in terms of income. You're just going to get less in terms of product, because and so if you're on the bottom side of that K, life is harder and harder for you in terms of food, in terms of rent, and in terms of other goods that you have to buy. If you're on the top side of that K, then as the stock market goes up while unemployment goes up, then you find that there's two things that you need to consider. It's with the best of times and the worst of times, to paraphrase Dickens.
A Tale of Two Cities.
In A Tale of Two Cities.
One more question on this $11.8 billion number.
Mm-hmm.
I was having this conversation with my students yesterday. I told them, don't focus so much on the 11.8 billion
mm-hmm.
today. Let's see where we are in January and in February,
mm-hmm.
because
mm-hmm.
this AI-driven online buying means all of those online purchases were via credit. And when you had fewer people going into brick and mortar stores on Friday, they're not rushing to the mall like they used to. That means that there's not as much cash being transacted.
Mm-hmm.
So when those bills come due in January and those bills come due in February, that could be a serious problem for the economy.
Yeah, we have a phenomenon, excuse me, with regard to credit that, as far as I know, is a very recent phenomenon, a very new phenomenon of people buying food on credit. Now, I'm not talking about going to a restaurant and buying food.
Right.
I'm talking about going to the grocery store
to buy those 4 oranges.
Exactly, on credit. Because you have credit until you can't pay the bill. And so if you have a credit card, but you don't have the cash to buy food at the grocery store, which you would normally have done, or if you were buying a food on credit, but you're going to pay it back, and credit card balances are not only going up, but credit card defaults, people not being able to pay, is also going up. And so people are buying things that they would not have bought on credit. They're buying things like those oranges on credit.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the bill is going to come due. You have a credit limit, and you can buy up to your credit limit, and you people are doing that in the bottom of that K. They're doing that because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to buy food and water and those kind of things. So you're buying those things. And but the bill is going to come due, and Black Friday is the beginning of the sales season.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the end. We've got to go through a couple of other holidays here before the end of that sales season, mostly Christmas and then New Year's and those kind of things into the new season. And so there's a question. There's a phenomena that happens when you're in inflationary times, which is kind of counterintuitive. When people expect prices of things to go up in the future, they tend to buy things now.
Mm-hmm.
So if folks are saying that by the time we get to Christmas, I may not be able to afford that new thing that I want. I need to buy it now. Then maybe it's very possible for much of these Black Friday sales to be anticipatory, in the sense that people are buying now expecting not to be able to buy in the future. So if that's the case, then what may be happening is that we find a surge or an increase in Black Friday sales, but we're going to see that the holiday, the Christmas and New Year's holiday sales are going to be down.
And I said this was the last question on this, but this will be, and that is, we were talking with you last year, talking with Dr. Jack Rasmus, talking with Dr. Radhika Desai about the fact that people last year were already at their credit limits, and having nothing to do with holiday purchases, but to your point, just everyday cost of living. They were already extended on their credit. So, and that was really why I made the point to my students to pay attention to this, because they're talking about online sales, which again, credit driven, and people are already at their limits. So I just wanted to, this, and now this just popped in my head. So folks, we haven't prepared for this, but I do want to make this point. We're getting to now. We're on. Today is the 2nd of December. The Congress has to do something with the Affordable Care Act subsidies before the 31st of this month, or people's premiums are going to go through the roof. And I was reading a story yesterday, I think it was. They were looking at West Virginia and the impact that if the rates go up, the impact that this was going to have on West Virginia. And what stood out to me was the point that West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the country. I looked it up. The median income in West Virginia, I think, is $54,000. West Virginia is 91% white. And so I was saying to my students, that's counter to the stereotype that we're used to when we start talking about Obamacare and poor people. The stereotype are people of color. Ronald Reagan's welfare queen, the woman that was on welfare and driving the Cadillac. No, we've got 91% white people in West Virginia. One of the poorest states. We could talk about Kentucky, we can talk about Tennessee, we can talk about parts of Pennsylvania, which Pennsylvania abuts West Virginia. So I just wanted to is that something worth paying attention to, I guess, is my question to you.
Well, as you're mentioning West Virginia, the term that came to mind was the canary in the mine.
Canary in a coal mine.
Yeah, and of course, West Virginia is coal mining country, so I don't think that metaphor came about accidentally. We have a situation where obviously the coal mining industry is down. The economy in West Virginia is down. And persons who have been in that area, we also, of course, have Appalachia runs through West Virginia, and Appalachia is one of the poorest regions of the country. It could be so goes West Virginia, goes the rest of the country. West Virginia becomes a bellwether for how things are working for the persons who have lower income, and those persons are not a majority in terms of numbers, people of color. And so we find that that persons who are poor are highly represented by persons who are not persons of color, and West Virginia becomes an example of that. But then you think about West Virginia. I'm out here in Kansas City in the Midwest. I think about the Midwest. I think about Missouri farmers. I think about Nebraska farmers, Nebraska and Iowa. Those states are bordering Missouri, and these farmers are having tremendous problems now. Part of their problem is not being able to keep workers, because workers are fleeing or not coming to work because they're afraid of immigration. But the crisis in farmland didn't just start with that. You have climate change that's causing increase in production prices, or decrease in crop production in the Midwest. We have other other issues related to climate that's causing the increase in the price of food because of the increase in the price of production, and so farmland was hit very early in terms of this crisis, not just by the immigration process, but also by other things that are going on in this country and the world. And so family farmers are losing their farms. Mm-hmm. They are going into foreclosure at a rate that would be comparable to what happened in the 1980s. And to mention Ronald Reagan was the president that oversaw that farm crisis in the 1980s. So that family farmers were losing their farms to big business. Mm-hmm. And that's happening again today. And I don't think it's an unintended consequence. If it were unintended, then there would be a response to that by the federal government. You do something to bail out these farmers instead of doing something to help these family farmers maintain their farms. The Trump administration is buying beef from Argentina and shipping it here and putting increased pressure on cattle farmers. Because you're giving billions of dollars to the Argentinian government to keep their economy afloat, and you're making trade deals with Argentina, and beef is a big product out of Argentina. And so cattle farmers in this country are wondering what's going on with this administration, which and I would say this, I don't have the numbers, but those farmland and cattle land tend to be very conservative. They tend to be in red areas, and generally they voted for the Republican, which was Donald Trump. And so this is not what they voted for, but they're finding that they're losing their businesses, and those businesses are going to go to be bought up by big business, by agribusiness. And I don't think that's an unintended consequence. I think that's intended.
Well, and to your point, and you mentioned the 80s, and that takes me to Thomas Frank's book, What's the Matter with Kansas? How Conservatives Won the Heart of America. He wrote this book in the 80s in response to what you were talking about, what Ronald Reagan did, trying to figure out how did these people, as Malcolm would say, get hoodwinked, bamboozled, and led astray.
Right.
The only caveat I'll throw out there to your point about we didn't vote for this, I would say, nay. Yes, you did. You did vote for this. What you're saying when you say I didn't vote for this was, wait a minute, you weren't supposed to screw me. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump was very clear. I'm not drawing a blank on the other guy that his Steve Bannon was very clear. Russell Vought, very clear. They told you what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. You all just didn't think it was going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I'm sorry to have thrown that one at you unprepared, but I knew that you would be able to manage that without any problem at all.
I appreciate your confidence.
Well, and thank you for not letting me down. There's another story. Department of Justice and RealPage agree to settle rental price fixing case. Yeah. The settlement is the latest development following a 2022 ProPublica investigation that showed RealPage was helping landlords set rents in a way that legal experts said could result in cartel-like behavior. Mm-hmm. Why is this relevant today and right now?
We've been talking this session about artificial intelligence and price fixing, and Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, which was published in 1776, right? Mm-hmm. The founder of capitalism, although he didn't use the term capitalism. wrote in The Wealth of Nations that businessmen never get together unless they conspire to fix prices. Now, that's something that conservatives, when they quote Adam Smith, they don't quote that section.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a situation in which there's a company called RealPage, and it's not the only company, but it's a major company that has used pricing from all over the country and country and geographic pricing down to the neighborhood to figure out the prices, to find the prices of rentals in these neighborhoods, and to use that information through an artificial intelligence system to figure out what the best product, what the customer will bear in terms of rental prices, in order to maximize the profits for landlords. And we're not talking about small landlords. We're talking about large companies that have hundreds of thousands of rental properties, who are using this company, which uses artificial intelligence, to set prices. And so it's not the big landlords that have to get together to conspire to prices. They can go to one company that is and that company can use its information processing capability to set prices for the competitors. And so for the supposed competitors, right, in terms of the rental market, they're no longer competitors. They're all using the same service, and so they are colluding in that process. And the Department of Justice filed a lawsuit saying that this was collusion, but it wasn't collusion in a way that the companies were getting together in the same room to conspire to fix prices, and so it wasn't, technically it wasn't illegal for them to do that, but RealPage was the focus of their collusion. And so we've been talking about artificial intelligence and price fixing, and RealPage is a perfect example of that. Now, the Department of Justice in November reached an agreement with RealPage in response to a lawsuit that was filed in the Biden administration. And what that lawsuit, what the settlement causes RealPage to do is to not use so precise a geographic price fixing. So instead of using the prices in your neighborhood to figure out what the rental rate should be in your neighborhood, and to maximize profits, they can only do it in the city. So they can't be as geographically precise, but they can still do the price fixing, just not on a fine-tuned level. And they have to use historical data, so they can't use supposedly they can't use up-to-date data, today's data. They have to use data from a year ago. But the problem with that data from a year ago and from 2 years ago and from 5 years ago is that the prices were all going up from 5 years ago and a year ago. And so if you're using that data, you already have a trend line in how you're going to increase pricing. So not using current data, it's not going to be very much of a handicap in terms of rental prices. Rental prices are still going to go up, and companies that use RealPage are going to get the algorithm that says your prices should be 20% more now than they were a year ago, because that's what the historical data is going to tell them. And so the price fixing is already built into the predictive model. And so this agreement, this settlement that the Department of Justice has made with RealPage is not going to stop the collusion. It's just going to sanction it. I mean, just to make it agreeable as part of a settlement. And so, so artificial intelligence it has a number of offers a lot of possibilities for particularly big business that have the money to buy these services, to collude to set prices.
So since and just so you know, I'm when you make reference to a book, I'm getting up trying to find the book on my bookshelf so I can show people what the book looks like. I couldn't find where my copy of Wealth of Nations is.
Okay.
So, but I was able to find What's the Matter with Kansas, but
Yes.
I couldn't find Wealth of Nations is in here somewhere. Um, um, and Lonnie Guinier wrote, because I also got up. You mentioned Canary in the Coal Mine.
Yes.
She wrote, and so that's in here somewhere as well. But I couldn't find it anyway. So since the name of the show is Connecting the Dots,
Mm-hmm.
and this real page settlement as it relates to, I won't use this as a technical term, I'll use it as a reference point, price fixing.
Mm-hmm.
Venture capitalists buying up property,
Mm-hmm.
single family homes, and then not putting those homes on the resale market, putting those homes on the rental market.
Right.
That is that a dot that we need to connect to this conversation?
Yeah, we need to connect it because because the wealth of most people, that bottom of the K,
Mm-hmm.
and even a little further up the line, the wealth of most people is in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
That is, in the homes that they own,
Right?
not in the homes that they rent, because if you're renting a home, that's owned by someone else. So when you're paying your mortgage, part of that mortgage goes into your savings. It goes into your equity. It builds your wealth. And the way that most mortgages are, if they're 30 years and they're at a certain rate, you start off paying into a mortgage, and very little of that goes into your equity. But as time goes on, more and more of that goes into your equity. So you can over 30-year mortgage, even you can build your wealth. And most people's net worth is in their homes.
And then women, and then also the home usually over time will appreciate.
Right.
And the amount or the value of that appreciation goes into your equity as well.
Exactly. Well, yeah, it goes into your wealth.
Right.
And so equity on the balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where most people's wealth is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, there's a statistic that we use as comparison between black wealth and white wealth. And the black wealth from this Pew report a couple of years ago, it's a little dated, was that white wealth was average, medium wealth was $170,000. Mm-hmm. And black median wealth was 17,000. So that gives you a 10-to-1 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
That wealth is in homes, mostly.
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't have the opportunity to buy a home, then you don't have the opportunity to accumulate wealth. But that doesn't mean that the wealth is not accumulating. It's just not accumulating for you. It's accumulating for the person, for the entity that owns the housing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get through the 2008 crisis, we found, part of it was a housing crisis. People were losing their houses, and the foreclosures were not being bought up and then resold to the buying public. It was being those foreclosures were being bought up by large real estate companies, who in the past would have resold those houses, allowing the purchasers to accumulate their wealth. But now we're keeping them off the mortgage market and now into the rental market. And so there's a shortage of houses to buy, mm-hmm. which increases the price of houses, making it more and more difficult for people to buy houses. And so people are stuck in rentals. And so when people are stuck in rentals and they can't accumulate enough, let's say, of a down payment to buy a house because the price of houses is going up, that means that wealth building is not happening for most of the population. And so you're paying rent, and that equity is going to the owners of that house, which is the rental company. And so we get an exaggeration of this inequality in wealth, so that the owners, the 1% or the 1/10 of 1% or even the 10% who are invested in real estate companies are accumulating the wealth of most people instead of that wealth going to most people through the increase in the value of their housing that they own.
And I want to just quickly reiterate those numbers. You use, I think, 170 or 180. The last time I looked at some of the numbers a couple of days ago, and the numbers will vary depending on the report that you read. I saw numbers as high as 230 for white wealth accumulation, but it was still a 10-to-1 ratio. So the black median wealth was around $23,000. And folks, you need to understand that this is not salary. When they talk about wealth, they're not talking about salary, they're talking about assets. So they're talking about the value of your home, your stock portfolio, your retire. They're not talking about paycheck. Right. And so folks need to understand when you hear the term you're $5,000 away from a financial catastrophe, if your total net worth is $18,000, you don't have any money.
Right.
So
yeah, and that gap has increased. So if we've gone from 17,000 to 23,000 for black wealth, that's an increase of $6,000. If we've gone from 170,000 to 230,000, that's an increase of $60,000.
Great point.
So the gap has increased by $54,000. And so even though the ratio of 10-to-1 has maintained itself, the gap is increasing. And so, there are economists who would argue that, who have made a calculation that the black population will take about 280 years to catch up with the white population in terms of wealth. That's a boat. I mean, it's 280 years is a lot of time, but it's even longer than that. It's never. At that rate, the wealth gap increases, and so the black population by that metric will never catch up with the white population in terms of wealth. It never happens. And so we've had some discussions on this program about reparations, and we won't go into a long discussion now. But reparations is a way to decrease that wealth gap. And by my estimation, it actually is the only way to do that.
And to your point regarding the Midwest farmers and how these types of variances or differences are built into the process.
Yes.
Now you go from the farm, losing the family farm. Now let's move it from the farm to the urban center and losing your house or not being able to buy a house. That's built into the process.
Yes.
And so when you look at the wealth disparity and you use the home as the major focus, with redlining from banks and the other types of things that were done at the end of World War II, with veterans benefits and the disproportionate veteran benefits that went to black veterans versus built into the process.
Yes.
So when you understand that the intergenerational transference of wealth, that the one way that families are able to have the next generation do better than the previous generation is by transferring wealth to the next generation.
Right.
By the value of the home, we've been locked out of that process.
Yes, I mean, overall, if you want to sum this up, there's a statement that says the rich get rich and the poor get poor. And that is not just an offhand observation. It is the way the system is structured. And we've been talking about artificial intelligence and all of those mechanisms have accelerated the process of the divide between the rich and the poor. And in that poor population, it's not just black folks. It's just not just people of color. There's an increasing number of whites who are
91%
yeah,
of West Virginia is white people. That's
right.
why I made that point.
Yes, exactly. This is not a race issue.
No.
Although race is used to convince people that it is just a race issue.
Well, and there's a disproportionate impact based on race.
Right. Yeah, it's not just a race issue.
Right.
It is part of it, but there's very much a class, and you mentioned income versus wealth. Yeah, there is a correlation between income and wealth. For those who are above on that K, the greater income you have, the less you have to spend, and so your wealth is going to increase. Mm-hmm. For those who are on the bottom of that K, you're spending all of your income, so there's no opportunity to build wealth. And so it's a correlation, but it's a tale of two cities. Again, it's different for the rich and different for the poor. In fact, there's a statement that said the rich are different than the poor. Yeah, they have more money. So, that's the difference.
Final point on this, and then I want to quickly move to the last point regarding African countries and that is,
yeah.
I've probably mentioned this to you once or twice before. I look at the creation of the financial product called the reverse mortgage as a real undiscussed indicator of the problem that people are having with retirement relative to the value of their homes and the inability then to transfer that wealth to the next generation.
Yes.
And the reverse mortgage says, as you've gotten older, you didn't save enough for there's too much month at the end of the money, and you now can pull out the equity in your home and use that as retirement income. And then when you pass away, the bank takes the house.
Right.
You don't have a house to pass on to your kids.
Right.
But I don't hear people talking about why was that financial product created in the first place? What does that signal about the economy and the future of the transference of wealth? I don't hear people having that conversation.
Yeah, the product was created because financial institutions have realized that people will not have enough money at the end of their lives to maintain their life. And so they've devised a product that solves that short-term problem for those who don't have enough money, but creates income and wealth for them. And that's the intention. The intention of the product is to create wealth. And it does very well for those who are buying the reverse mortgages, and so it sucks all of that that would have been intergenerational wealth. It sucks all of that out of the one part of the economy, one demographic into the wealth, and so the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
And finally, and I wanted also to hit on this. Decolonization, the civil rights movement and the Black nationalist movement of the late 60s and the 70s linked African Americans to countries on the African continent. But now we see recent developments in Niger. You've got the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. These countries moving from flag independence to true independence and control of their economies. What's been happening with that relationship between the African American community and the communities in the African countries?
Well, I think there's not enough that has been happening. There is certainly an awareness in the Black community of a need to have greater economic relationships with persons on the African continent. And there are various trade delegations that have occurred between, let's say, African American mayors of African American mayors of cities in the U.S. have traveled to various African countries to try to create trade relationships. One of the things that I'm concerned about with that is that these mayors going into African countries may have very good intentions and wanting to create trade relationships, but if they're going to African countries to represent the trade in the way that white companies and white traders would go to the African country to represent trade, then they're looking at perhaps trying to continue that process of neocolonialism, of being a representative for the old colonizer who is the new colonizer.
Mm-hmm.
African countries are rejecting that, and they're wanting to move away from that neo-colonial relationship, as you mentioned, the Sahel states, wanting to move into a relationship where they are truly decolonized. And so the relationship that is going to happen, if it happens, between African Americans in this country and our brothers and sisters on the continent, is going to be a relationship of true decolonized relationship. No longer are African countries going to and persons in African countries going to want to have relationship with even African Americans who are representing the colonial masters. Now, it's important for us to understand that, because we need to have relationships with persons in the African diaspora on the African continent. African Americans need to have that relationship, because we've been talking about the inability to build wealth in the context of this structure of this country. Well, there's an opportunity to build wealth as we find the majority of the world, the 3/4 of the world, which is moving away from the control of the West. We have to decide whether or not we're going to be truly decolonized partners with Africans, or we're going to continue to be colonized representatives of the colonizer to African countries, because African countries, Africans in African countries are rejecting that relationship. So if we're going to have an opportunity to be a part of a larger economy, to get back into wealth building, we have to also recognize that relationship that we're going to have between us and our brothers and sisters on the African continent is going to have to change. We're going to have to understand that they're moving in a direction away from colonization, and they do not want us to come to represent the colonizer. They want us to come with our skill and talent and ability to help them grow as they help us to grow. So there's an opportunity there, but we have to change our thinking in terms of what that relationship is going to be.
And to your point, as we get out, that makes me think about Ella Baker, as she was directing the members of SNCC on how to organize. Yeah. And she was saying to those members of SNCC, when you go into these communities, you can't go into these communities or countries telling them what you're going to do. You need to go in and sit and talk and listen and ask them what they need to do, and how can you help them get there. Right. That's a whole change in mindset. So whether you're going into Mississippi, or whether you're going into Mali, that mindset has to change.
Yeah, there are almost 1 billion Africans on the continent. There are only 45 million of us. We are tiny. They need our knowledge and expertise, right? We have a better higher education system than they have. We don't have a better K-12 education system than they have, but we have a higher level of technical skill. That's not going to last very long, because Africans are building their universities and their technical skill and so forth. So there's a window of opportunity here, but we're tiny. We need that relationship much more than I'd say a billion people needs 45 million. We need them more. And if we're not going to take advantage of this opportunity to grow with them, then we will be just part of this dying empire in this part of the world. We have to decide on what we're going to do.
And thank you very much. As we get out, I want to make this point. I missed this point when we were talking about dynamic pricing. My producer sent me this point. Dynamic pricing happens, and everything that you're trying to buy online, whether it's a bus ticket, a train ticket, a plane ticket, or something on eBay, even when you look to book Airbnb, it's happening on this dynamic pricing through artificial intelligence is happening across the system at all levels. So
Yes.
I wanted to be sure that because that's a very valid point, and I wanted to be sure that that point was made. Dr. Linwood Tauheed, as always, my brother, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, man, look forward to having you back.
Always a pleasure, and we should have a whole conversation about decolonization, because it is very important to our community here in this country. But it is the way the world is going, and we need to know how that's happening.
In fact, you mentioned the dying empire, and we will have that conversation. Thank you for making that point, because there's a causation and correlation between the decolonization and the decline in the empire.
Yes, absolutely.
Man, thank you. Really appreciate it. Look forward to having you back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, folks. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you for listening to the Connecting the Dots podcast. New episode tomorrow. Still working on my guest. And the reason is trying to just get a sense of how what's happening in Venezuela. And I in the conversation yesterday with Ricardo Vaz, I was making the point, I think Donald Trump is bluffing. And so we're going to see what's happening there, as well as with the conversations in Russia. So want to be as current and as on point as always. So bear with us as we work through what we're gonna cover tomorrow. But please follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show, follow us on social media. All the links are below in the show description. And remember that this is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge. Talk without analysis is just chatter, and we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Have a blessed remainder of your day. I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.